All right, welcome back once again. My name is Imuna Yisrael, and this is Solonomics 101. We have an awesome treat for you today. Some weeks ago, there was a whole lot of hoopla about what a congressman, Sean Duffy of Wisconsin, said. And I was able to get, praise be to the Most High, Reverend Childress, who is at the forefront of this conversation as it relates to Black genocide and the fact that all Black lives do matter. So I will let Reverend Childress come in. I'm greatly honored. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing very good. So happy we can finally connect so I could be
Yes.
on your program.
Yes, finally, patience, patience. So I'm so
Yeah.
glad that I was patient and we were able to finally connect. So Reverend Childress, I'm just gonna, let him have it. Introduce yourself a little more and tell them what this is really all about.
Well, first of all, the opportunity always to share this message is precious because I ask that the listeners really would do the research themselves, that they would challenge me on what I'm saying, whether it's accurate. And the way you challenge me, please challenge your present Black leadership the same way, because we're not challenging them on the facts, the empirical truths that are seriously affecting the African American community. Each day, 1,786 African American children are killed by abortion. 1,786 African American women were coerced, were lied to, were pressured into doing something that naturally they knew to complete, and that was their 9 months of pregnancy. And this is systemic. It is empirically proven that it's systemic. 52% of all African American pregnancies end in abortion. African Americans make up 12.4% of the population, but 36% of the abortions. They want to make this appear to be something that we are choosing. I'm going to say it again. We are being seduced into it. We're being lied to about the effects of abortion on, physiologically speaking,
Yes.
on women.
Yes.
I am appalled. I am saddened. I am angry. I'm disappointed, devastated by the continual rejection of our so-called Black leadership on this issue. This is criminal, and it just makes it very plain. I say this, your listeners really just have to accept this for what it is. We've been betrayed for profit, for power, for position. Those Congressional Black Caucus members especially know they need money to get elected, okay? So who gives them that money? Planned Parenthood. That whole industry knows that African Americans are the target community. That's where all the clinics are set up. That's proven, over 88% of them. And so all of their marketing is towards African Americans. Some of the vile and obscene things that are on Planned Parenthood's website should make any parent shudder. I mean, vile, almost pornographic. It is pornographic, matter of fact, and yet why? They're basically accenting, they're luring African American girls. They go into neighborhoods and schools where predominantly there's African American women, young girls. This is proven. And I am not the only one that would verify this for you, but we are censored. We are silenced by mainstream and this administration, as well as past administrations. But you have to understand that these facts do not go away. They are true facts, empirically proven. I challenge you to challenge me. That would help me to know that you finally would know the truth. And just Google Margaret Sanger, the founding mother of Planned Parenthood. The ideology has not changed. And just to get this in, then I'll take a question you may want to ask me, is the fact people say, well, okay, Margaret Sanger, who was she? How bad could she be? This woman tutored Adolf Hitler. This woman received a commendation from the Third Reich for her assistance in the genocide of Jews and Blacks in Germany, by the way. It wasn't just Jews that were being put in the ovens, they African Americans. As a matter of fact, if you get the documentary My Alpha 21, you'll find that Hitler said one of the reasons he went after the Jews is because they brought the blacks in. I mean, these things need to be understood and known. So, and Margaret Sanger was eugenics. Was one of the leader of eugenics in this country. And I'll end my little tirade presently for this: is that when eugenics became a bad word and Germany was exposed for all the horror they were doing there, she changed the name of the organization. It used to be the Birth Control League.
Mhm.
Then they changed it. Nobody left. The board remained the same. She was still leading it. She changed the name to Planned Parenthood.
Correct.
It's the same people, and it is the best kept secret in America.
Wow. For those who have just joined us, we're on the line with Reverend Childress. He's at the front of this. His website is blackgenocide.org. He was featured in the movie, or the documentary is an excellent documentary, Ma'afa 21, which needs to be shown everywhere, you know. But Reverend Childress, for those who may not know or be aware of genocide, not genocide, eugenics, and what that really represents to the Black community. Can you briefly bring them up to speed on what it is and how abortion plays into it?
Yes. Eugenics, first of all, the definition is the purposely or the deliberate targeting of a particular ethnic group to either reduce their numbers or to cause them to be extinct. That is eugenics. And what they found, better than contraceptives and better than anything else they had tried previously, such as poisoning the water with some type of drug that young women, they still do those things, by the way, that they would miscarry. That's what's going on in Africa and other third world countries. I would not be surprised if it's going on here. It just hasn't been exposed yet. But they found abortion to be the best way to bring about the desired result. And unfortunately, African-American women are using, as well as many other women other than African-American, are using abortion as a contraceptive. The worst thing you could ever possibly do, just from the natural physiological aspect of it. And always remember, and I'm not going to get into the other subject, but one of the main social ills of America is abortion. And always remember, it is unnatural. A woman's body is not designed to abort. The brain does not recognize, please hear me, the brain does not recognize the abortion until months later. In a miscarriage, the brain immediately knows indeed there's been a miscarriage, and it shuts the process down.
Yes.
That does not, I repeat, ladies, men, it does not happen in abortion. And this is what causes tumors to develop. This is what causes uterine cancers to develop. Breast cancer is an alarming rate in the African American community. And that wasn't the case until after 1973. Always remember, you mean African American? Well, we got the light shining in again.
The light just busted right in. Shine the light on it.
That means get this. Wait, if you want me, I'll fix that now. I'll keep talking. But anyway, it actually lets us to understand, and African American women must understand that through multiple abortions, they now leave the country in miscarrying. And remember, African American women would have their babies in the field. Correct. I mean, this is a new phenom because we have embraced a so-called help or a so-called assistance from government to cause us to have their expectation of what the quality of life is. And we've embraced abortion wholeheartedly. And it was a scheme, a deliberate scheme to, one, kill your child, to cause you not to be able to have children later. You immediately become high risk. If you get pregnant and you go into the doctor, the first thing he's going to ask you is, did you have an abortion? Your price immediately quadruples from being high risk. And if you have 3 or 4, it is said that the doctors will say, or that elitist mindset that basically oppresses the people of color and the poor. He says, well, we have two now, because they know they're going to abort the baby, and pretty soon you too will be wrestling with breast cancer
Mm.
later in your life. And that's how short is and for whatever reasons, the percentage in women when they contract breast cancer, it's for whatever the reason. I'm not a doctor. I've talked with Dr. Eve Silver and others, Joel Brim. It's a very aggressive cancer, breast cancer. Because first of all, you didn't have to go that route, and it shouldn't even be. But whatever is happening in your body, the cancer is far more aggressive and far more devastating.
Wow, for those who just joined it, when you put your head over, we got a little bit of light shining in the background, but we definitely gonna work with it because
All
we
right.
have Reverend Childress here shining the light on some of these things that we say you may not want to hear from others. But this is Elder who's on the front line of this, and it is a real epidemic. I wanted to touch a little bit on what he's saying. I know people might not want to get graphic, but let's get graphic for a minute for those to understand, like you said, why it increases the rate of miscarriages is because you're actually forcing open the cervix,
Mhm.
which thereafter, and the cervix was designed to close with a little mucus over the membrane to not allow any impurities in the womb while you're in gestation. So when you force this open a number of times, some women who've continued to do this process, they actually have to sew them up because the baby will come out before the time because your cervix no longer is able to keep itself together during that pregnancy time. So like he's saying, it's a serious situation even for the mother as it
Yeah.
relates to the emotions that she feels, the depression that she feels, the psychological issues that ensue. Now I see a lot of graphic pictures on your website, and I know that's for an appeal to the mind and the conscience. Can you tell us about the difference for if you can, first trimester and second trimester, and what is actually going on in that process, and that is actually murder?
Well, indeed, yes, because 18 days, that's first trimester, you have a heartbeat. Uh,
Yes.
42 days, you have brain waves. And just over that past 3 months, no, yes, within that 3 months, child's even able to suck its thumb. So
Mm,
you got to understand that where most abortions do occur in that first trimester, that is life. And we know that it's through the modern technology that we can measure the heartbeat at 18. It used to be 21. Now they can even measure it at 18. And so you never know. The fact of the matter is, most women don't even know that they're pregnant
mm,
in 18 days. And my argument, if I were to get into a car accident and I'd be unconscious, what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to check my pulse. That
mm-hmm,
means he has a heartbeat. Then I said, okay, well, now we have to do one more thing. They're going to rush me to the hospital and check my brain waves. If my brain waves are fine, that means that's good news. He's got a pulse, brain waves fine. We'll wait for him to come out of it. We'll wait for the process for him to recuperate. Not the case when it comes to the unborn child. You got a heartbeat, you got brain waves, but they refuse to wait for that process to continue. That is a human being. That is a baby. And the second trimester, people don't believe that there's abortions that occur. That child is fully formed,
mm,
fully formed. And this is how the lie of Planned Parenthood has been exposed. They told young girls that that was a blob of tissue.
mm,
Well, if it's a blob of tissue, how are you selling body parts? How are you having operations that are aborting children that are whole, that are purposely kept alive so they can harvest the full brain?
mm,
This is Adolf Hitler. I mentioned the Third Reich earlier. They didn't do stuff like this. This is barbaric. It's conscienceless people. It's a unquestionably insidious to even think that anybody like this or an organization like this is going not only carrying on this type of business, but is being protected by our government. Now, I got to remember, the government gives Planned Parenthood $540 million. That's not state dollars. That's that is federal dollars of your taxpayer money goes to Planned Parenthood. And why? They know what Planned Parenthood does. The Congressional Black Caucus knows what Planned Parenthood does. The NAACP knows what Planned Parenthood does. The
Wow.
Rainbow Coalition knows what Planned Parenthood does. But yet all of them are basically saying to themselves, this is a very
Lucrative.
lucrative business, and we will benefit from our own brothers and sisters' blood, sorrow, and tears.
Wow.
We have been betrayed.
Reverend,
And
Reverend Childress, can I ask you just to tip the computer a
let me,
little bit?
can I,
Yeah.
you talk for a minute and I'll get back up there and put this back up.
And the light just bursted through, that's the truth coming in. But we have, for those who have just joined us, we have Reverend Childress. We're talking about abortion and the Black community today. Do all Black lives matter? And when Reverend comes back, we're going to have the conversation about what he's actually doing in the community to bring awareness to this very real and present topic. If you haven't as yet seen the documentary, My Alpha 21, it breaks it down to the ground. It's a watch that you're gonna, I actually saw that you have an opportunity to bring it to your town if you desire to. You can write into the website. Reverend Childress was a part of that documentary, and you can write into the website and definitely host it. But awareness, there's a lot of reasons why people resort to abortion, especially as he was saying in our community. And I wanted Reverend Childress to touch on that a little bit, because a lot of young girls are being coerced. But what is the position that we play as the people? What position do the men play who are impregnating these women and giving them this as an option? What part does the pressure from the external community or the non-acceptance of this life that now she's going to have to raise? I've heard women say in the past, men have told them, get rid of it. They have walked them down to the clinic. They will walk you in and sit with you and allow you to go through that process. Reverend Childress is back. Can you speak to that? How we as a community relate to this and the things that we've been doing?
I think the most important thing is to first recognize you're not being told everything about abortion, young ladies, and it's being pushed on you in the school system. Planned Parenthood is in the school system. They're sending out teaching, basically giving a curriculum that also includes them not saying anything to their parents on what they're getting. That's the other thing. If it's so good, how come your parents can't know about what you're receiving in the classroom? But that's by design. And in my state, a 12-year-old girl can go have an abortion without the parents' permission. Yes, in New Jersey. So I say to all who are listening right now, anytime you have such atrocity, the atrocity of abortion, but such criminal behavior, such coercions of the young ladies and young men, and with impunity. I mean, no one corrals or confronts or calls this out for what it is. And this is extremely sad that our Black voices have unquestionably been so silent. Why? Because basically they're profiting from the pain of women, profiting from the blood of our children. There's no other way you could say it. And just to prove my point, for just about every year since 2006 and 7, we have made requests to have a seminar. You don't have to let Reverend Childress come in, because first of all, I don't think I'm totally qualified to talk from the medical facts, even though I know most of them. But the fact of the matter is, if you feel uncomfortable with that, we have doctors, we have Black doctors, male and female, that will come in and explain what's happening to these young ladies' bodies that are submitting themselves to an abortion. It is the most performed operation on a woman, and it is disproportionately African American. How can you then dare not talk about it? How can you not have a clinic on the inside?
Yes.
And you know why? They don't want these women to challenge Planned Parenthood and challenge the abortion industry. Why? Because this is where they're getting their dollars from. And so if indeed we ever really followed the money trail, we would see unquestionably, and I challenged them to do that, that indeed that we have been portrayed. Why can't we have an open discussion? If it's so good and you're pushing it, why can't we talk about it? They
Hmm.
don't want that discussion.
So, you have started a discussion with All Lives Matters along with others. I've seen some of your protests. Can you tell the people exactly? Because I saw the big boards, just what it looks like. Babies that have actually been aborted, the little tiny fingers, the little tiny feet. Can you speak about the way you go out into the community and present this information and some of the feedback that you've gotten?
Well, I first want to say it is not pleasant for me to do, but I have to, because the victim must be realized in the light in the people's minds, so they can understand the depths of the atrocity, the depths of the horrific abuse that is going on behind closed doors. Nobody testifies in church about that they had an abortion. It is a very secret,
Well,
very secretive thing. So you have to expose. It's just in the same spirit of Emmett Till. They begged her to close the casket, and she refused to close the casket. She said, I want the world to see what they did to my baby boy. And I want your listeners to know there was a certain woman one day who was looking at that picture on the bus. And when asked to move, she was so appalled by the picture, so appalled at everything that she had been going through, she refused to move from her seat. That woman was Rosa Parks. It was the picture of Emmett Till that she was looking at, but before he came to ask her to move, that she said, no, not today, not today. And thus, we have the Montgomery bus boycott and the real birth of the civil rights movement when it began to get momentum. So we been portrayed. So that means we have to inform ourselves. And I was just discussing with a young person, if it wasn't for the internet, we'd be dead. So I know they're going to try and silence the internet. If it wasn't for the internet, there'd be no means to get our information to people the way we have been able to do it. Of course, it's not mainstream. Once again, the most performed operation on a woman, the most decimating force in America, in the world against African Americans, and it's not in the media. It's not on mainstream media. 2020 won't touch it. None of the documentaries. You see CNN talk about Black America. Not one word about abortion. Come on. You can see how deep these tentacles go. I mean, just objectively, you got to mention if it's killed over 20 million African Americans, you don't want to talk about that. If you add up AIDS, if you add up cancer, if you add up heart disease, you add up all these things and it doesn't come to half of abortion, and you tell me you don't want to talk about it, that tells me you've been bought. There's something you don't want to say to me about the entrenchment of this ideology where you feel that African American women especially have to abort their children. So right now we have to first recognize you've been lied to. Two, recognize you must inform yourselves and get my website is blackgenocide.org. There's abortionno.org. There's links you can go to. Health-wise, Coco Life is Eve Silver. She's a surviving breast cancer individual that dedicated her life to talk about abortion and breast cancer, and it'll move you to tears, but we have to get our story out. And so with any social activism, though, the victims have to be visualized. Not only did Emmett Till have an impact, but you remember when the 6 o'clock news, when we came home and we saw dogs being turned on children in the streets of Birmingham, the nation was appalled. Right. Emmett Till was an individual. Now you have dogs being turned on masses of people. That was the tipping point. Yeah. So we're in a time now that African Americans must recognize that we are to save the generation that's coming up. Martin Luther King said, the Negro cannot win if he chooses to sacrifice his children for immediate comfort and safety. That's exactly what's going on right now. We're sacrificing our children for convenience, for immediate comfort and safety. And so therefore, we're also becoming a very callous and cold society. Abortion does a whole lot of people don't even understand to the mindset. I mean, life is not sacred. And when life isn't sacred, anybody can go. The elderly can go. Those with Down syndrome are now subject. Anybody who they think isn't healthy. Who are you to make that decision? But when you can abort and kill children, if you can allow them to be born alive whole and watch them die and then sell them, we are at the depths of depravity. We need a surgence of revival, or whatever you want to call it, a reformation, a renaissance. It is necessary now because, as you stated earlier, how do you indict? The young man was indicted. Here's what they said they were indicting for. We're talking about David DeLeon, who exposed with those 12 videos. I mean, just the heinous behavior. I mean, those women scared me. They had to be witches. I mean, they talk so coldly against the selling and how to get the arm whole when you're performing an abortion, and how to keep the brain intact when you're chopping up a child. I don't even know how you could talk about things of this sort and this nature. But David DeLeon, he says, well, we're going to indict you. This is Texas. That's a shock. And he says, how are you going to indict me? Because you bought the body part, meaning he bought it as a sting, though, just to prove that he could do it. Well, if you indict the person who bought it, how about the person that sold it?
And for those who don't know, that hit the news. It's all over. It's in the it's all over the news this morning. What is this here? This is, what is this? What is this? Wall Street Journal. The title of it is "Jury Indicts 2 Anti-Abortion Activists Linked to Planned Parenthood Videos." They said, I was reading, they said because you obtained fraudulent identification, and so they indicted them on a few things. One of the charges is a felony, and the maximum is 20 years in prison, and another one of the charges is a misdemeanor, which carries up to 1 year. And so they turn the tables on them.
It's politically motivated.
Yeah.
You know, and your friends have to understand, and those of you listeners have, you know, they have friends in high places. Barack Obama is a staunch supporter of Planned Parenthood, and he has been a fundraiser. He spoke at fundraisers for them and totally believes in the concept. I have to go here at this point. I don't mean logistically. I mean, this is what Malcolm talked about as the house Negro. They are in the position where they could do good, but they have chosen to join in with the status quo that is oppressive, that is victimizing, that is profiting off of the blood of babies and children. And you have to understand that this administration is doing everything they can possibly to protect Planned Parenthood. And so African Americans, we have to wake up and just, you've been betrayed, get over it and move on. You got a generation that needs you to stand up, that's coming up behind you.
Yes.
So go ahead now. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I was looking, because I took your challenge to say, look at the statistics. And I was looking at what they said, one of the statistics as it was for the African-American community, as it relates to AIDS only. And they said from the time where it really became what we know, say 81 till 2012, it was less than 300,000 according to their statistics that have passed away from AIDS. But according to the statistics of, like you said, 13% of the population is African American, 36% of the women are getting abortions. And when I looked at their stats, it was over 300,000 babies being aborted yearly.
Yearly, yes.
Comparatively to the entire length of time for AIDS and HIV death, to 1 year of aborting within the Black community. I also wanted you, if you could, to speak to what I saw them saying, that the increase in population of the Black community in America is like at a stalemate, so to say. They're not increasing.
No, we're at it takes 2.1 in order to replace the current population. In other words, each woman has to have 2.1 children. That's the way statisticians look at it. Now, African Americans are at 1.96. And it may be lower now because it's been a while since I got any figures on that.
Mhm.
Caucasian has been collateral damage, in my estimation. They're at 2.3. The Hispanic woman
Oh,
is at
yes, I saw that.
5.8, I think it is. And Muslim, or I can't, I have to research this over and every time I come up, I'm gonna give you the lowest figure, is at 12.
Mm,
So in Europe and here, so this is by attrition. Things are going to change drastically in Europe for sure, but we are beneath the replacement level solely due to abortion. Now you got to understand, some of these young girls who are going to have abortions when they want to have children may not be able to.
all right.
That's part of the plan. That's part of the plan. And I'm all for adoption, and I'm all for covering those whose parents have abandoned them or for whatever reasons. But it is devastating for some of these women to find out later,
That you cannot.
because they weren't told of the dangers of abortion, that they cannot have a child strictly due to the fact that they had previous abortions.
So let's talk about this secrecy a little bit. And I just thank you so much for your time. For those who've just joined us, we're on the line with Reverend Childress, featured in the movie Ma'afa 21, as well as his website, blackgenocide.org, where you can find a whole lot of information concerning this topic. He's representing all Black Lives Matter. And I wanted to talk about the secrecy because that is what's really like causing this cancer to continue to grow. Like you said, maybe the child is young, or I'm saying maybe the mother or the parents want to hide it and they take them off. And so she first gets introduced to this thought of abortion from her own family.
Mm-hmm.
From her own, if she's a young teenager girl, 13, 14 years old, sometimes she's forced to go into these environments and get introduced to, this is how we're going to deal with it. Can you speak about the secrecy? And as you're saying, what are some of the things practically that we can do to break this silence as what you're doing today? Can you
And
speak a little bit about that?
unfortunately, the best way to, we have to grassroots this. I would love to say we're going to do a national program, or we're going to have a commercial in the Super Bowl. This would really be a boost for us, but
Right.
because we can't, we got to go door to door almost. We have to invade youth groups, PTAs. You cannot allow Planned Parenthood in unless you have an objective voice of someone who gives a counter to the ideology and what they're going to tell, because Planned Parenthood says your child's going to have sex anyway, so let us be the guru, let us be the teacher. As a matter of fact, one Planned Parenthood executive said they plan for each girl before the ages of 12 or 13, who she said 12 and 24, to have at least 6 abortions. This is how they market. And so she is now on our side. Her name is Carol Everett, and she's a champion for life now, but she weeps over the abortions that she participated in.
Mm,
And so we have to have the means of social media, connect with people who have been sharing the message of life. There's a lot of crisis pregnancy centers. That is good, but in my estimation, and that we need social activism. Crisis pregnancy is like after the fact sometimes. We need to make sure that Planned Parenthood does not have the mind of our children when it comes to their sexuality and their sexual expressions. 87% of mothers said they would want their children to remain abstinent until a serious relationship or marriage. So we have the parents that are for their abstinence teaching today. Certainly with the STDs, with the dangers, with all that goes along with the pornography and everything, being abstinent is almost mandatory. It's the safest way for our children to take, and why not give them the teaching on abstinence as well? But and you can't say it's not practical. It is the only means right now one should take, and if they choose not to, at least they had the information.
right.
So we cannot be laid back about this. If you have teenagers, Planned Parenthood is after them, and we have to understand that we are obligated. I say to the church, I said the church, you parents out there, you bring your children to church and put the onus on the church to teach your children morality and righteousness and God. The Bible doesn't do that. The Bible said that's your
Parents.
responsibility.
Yes, the
We,
parents are
we, we're,
supposed to do
we're
that.
supposed to assist you in that. And that's all we really can do. Unfortunately, a lot of times the whole onus is on the church. And we have to make sure that they understand the responsibilities of manhood, womanhood, and know what each role plays, and understand that women are directly targeted. They are under the attack of. I know it takes two, but they market towards women, and
Mm,
they also recognize. I believe that it's African American women who exponentially are going on to secondary educations in school and graduating from college. Is African American women that often are the heads of the household and that are going to be children, unfortunately, a lot of times without the assistance of a male. And so they target towards the game changer in the African American community. This is what they do. They sit back and they plan, and
mm.
they are attempting to reduce the numbers and sterilize African American women as much as they possibly can. That's a fact.
I read or I was looking, I think it was a documentary that spoke to the fact that early on when Planned Parenthood and this thought process was coming into the community, the leaders were well aware of what they were trying to do. But as time progressed, it's like the generation that's coming has no idea and is not even alarmed at the fact of what you're kind of do. Can you kind of speak to, I think you were alluding to it earlier, speak to how the awareness has been dumbed down to a degree that we're not even aware that we're in danger. I keep saying aware, but we're
No,
not
you're right.
cognizant, you
We
know.
we believe a lie that abortion is rare. That's a lie. We believe that it's safe. That's a lie, and it should not be readily available. And so these lies are entrenched. Now, let's face it. After the '60s, going into the '70s, your listeners need to know most African Americans voted Republican. Now, personally, I'm more of an independent than anything. I'm not glorifying the Republican Party, but it was the Republican Party that was formed to stop slavery. And it was the Democrats that were basically suppressing civil rights legislation. Okay. They flipped. That's another program, another time. I talked to Dr. Alveda King, the niece of Martin Luther King,
Martin Luther King.
and other people during that time. I came to the conclusion after going to the museum in Birmingham, civil rights. Uh, Fred Shuttlesworth is out in the front of that civil rights museum. That the Democratic Party saw the African American as a powerful voting bloc, and they literally bought the leadership.
Mm,
Abortion is black genocide. What happens to a mind of a person in the moral fabric of a nation that can abort a baby without a pang of conscience?
mm.
Where will we be 20 years from today? Those are the words of Jesse Jackson, okay, in 1970 something, I think 78 or whatever. Then when Jesse got seduced and Jesse got into the Democratic Party and he actually thought he could be president, he flip-flopped totally, and began to change his position. He changed his position not because of medical reasons, not because of science, not because of any research he's done. He was bribed. We will give you money to shift your position on this. African Americans have to also recognize that abortion is a part of the Democratic Party platform. If you're going to stay with the party, tell them to take that out of the platform because it's been detrimental to people of color. The funny thing about it is what's in the platform is hurting you most.
Mm.
Very frustrating. So that's how it stays hidden. NAACP will not touch it in the conventions. Congressional Black Caucus, by the way, 5 or 6 years ago, each one of them received a My Alpha 21 delivered to them personally by a good friend of mine named Dean Nelson. That's his name. But yet they strategize how to counteract what the new African American social activists and pro-life. Now, that was very, very good to hear that they noticed that we're rising up.
Mm.
But what did they do? They came up with phrases and tactics to diminish what we say. In that same meeting that was infiltrated by Day Gardner in Washington, D.C., they actually admitted our facts were correct.
Mm.
Now, that personally caused me to weep when I heard that. I became broken because in my little childlike mind, I thought once these heroes, these Black congressional caucus people, they'll know that what we are saying is true,
They'll do
and
something.
yeah, and would do something. And
Hmm.
what was their answer? How to counteract what we were doing, because it's about their position, it's about their politics, it's about their ideology, it's about power, it's about getting elected again, not about Black upward mobility, not about helping the African American community. So they become a cartel within themselves, and we have to understand that they are bought. So it has to be grassroots. We should not vote for people who do not have our values and principles. And this is what's been happening. And then someone told me, quite frankly, to my face, until someone loses over this, it'll keep going on until you defeat a politician on these issues and people refuse to support them because of these issues. Then you'll get their attention. And until that happens, things will remain the same. And so we have to educate people, and hopefully education, as Hosea says, my people are destroyed because of a lack of
Lack of
knowledge.
knowledge.
But the verse after that says, because you rejected knowledge, I will
Rejected
also
knowledge.
reject thee.
Rejected.
I say that because a lot of even Caucasian or pro-lifers believe that African Americans know this. I said they do not know it. They do not know these. We live in this world. They live in a place where they get their information, because I found out something very dear. Every ethnicity has a certain place where they get their information and what they choose to receive. White folks ain't really reading Jet, Ebony, and all these places. So we have to understand, we have to break into their realm where they get their information, and that's why they don't know, because they have surrounded. They know the places where most African Americans get their news, where most African Americans read, and trust me, they have consumed those places with their message and do everything to keep us out.
So my question, as you're talking about grassroots activism, what is some of the response that you get when you go out on the streets, when you go out with these big, huge, giant billboards?
I'm good.
What do you get when you go out there?
First of all, God has a sense of humor, because I never thought I would thank George Soros for anything. But Black Life Matters, which really isn't about Black lives, folks. Just let's be plain and let's be for real. But Black Life Matters has given me a tool
Mm-hmm.
that I can begin a conversation with any young person in America, whether white, Black, or whatever, because that mantra is on the lips and mindset of every person. This is wonderful, because this is where I wanted to start the conversation anyway. But I can get right to it, and I found this to be very effective on especially on Black college campuses, and we went on the Missouri college campus where all the students for concerned 1950 concerned students 1950 that caused the president to get fired. That's another story. But my point is this: all Black lives matter, and I got that website. All Black lives matters, because if you're coming to me telling me, and the sadness of Mike Brown, and certainly the young man in Cleveland, Walter Scott, just horrifically gunned down. Certainly, I have compassion towards that, but I cannot focus on that when 1,786 Black lives a day.
Mm-hmm.
I say, and not only that, you can't ignore that, because if you choose to, then you are a hypocrite. Black lives do not matter to you, and you're using this for your own political aspirations and reasons. There's no principle to you. There's no morality to you. I dare you say Black Lives Matters and then say 1,786 children being killed, Black children being killed each day by abortion is okay. I dare you not have that discussion. Now, Black Lives Matter will be in Cincinnati at the NAACP convention, I guarantee you. But I also guarantee you they won't let Reverend Childress in. And I also guarantee you they won't let anybody in to talk about where the decimation of the African American community is really
Happening.
being facilitated. So I continue to be a social activist is by God's grace, by His strength, because it's very, very depressing often to see how much people have been literally just consumed by this ideology of abortion, of whatever social ill there is. I'll stay on subject matter.
Right.
We have to really say, let's look at it physiologically, let's look at it medically, let's
Mhm.
look at it spiritually. You're a
Yes.
Christian, okay, let's talk. Because you hear, I always ask the young lady that says, that's it's my body. And I said, okay, are you a Christian? Some of them say yes. I said, doesn't Corinthians says you've been bought with a price and ye are not your own? In other words, you are now the body of Christ, and that you can't claim ownership in that fashion. That's what the scripture says. I said, what about the body that's inside of you? Because it's intellectually dishonest to claim a right for yourself, and in so doing, take away the right of somebody else. So we're having a lot of fun this past year. To be quite honest with you, the discussions have been very intense, and we had great success wherever we've been. We've had great success. Why? Because that Black Life, much of it, Black Life Matters, allows my Alpha 21 when I give it to them or point it to them on YouTube.
Mhm.
Now they're there because they're seeing the story of Planned Parenthood where Black life certainly did not matter. Matter
Correct.
of fact, we want less Black life. I think we're winning. I wish I had more resources. I wish I could be in more places, but I'm going to leave that up to God. But certainly we can take on any argument, any debate, any forum, any radio program, TV where we get access to. Our message has been well received, and and the ones that don't like it can't defeat it in debate.
Correct. The evidence is there. Like I said, that documentary, for those who have not seen it, please go and see it. It is thorough. Let me
Mhm.
just say that. You know what I'm saying? It is very, very thorough. And you can definitely, in this day and age, and what I kind of saw on the other platform that was having these discussions, the platforms were trying to debate without even going to look at the facts. So
Right.
that's not even a conversation. Before you refute based on emotions alone, take an opportunity to, like he said, prove me wrong. If you poll women, like you said, it's such a secretive thing that women are so ashamed to a certain degree. I don't know if you remember one of the women on the daytime talk show. I forgot her name. Some years ago, when she came out and admitted she had like 13 or some wild number of abortions. You remember her? I'm not sure if you remember. And a lot of pushback came behind it. It started off a little conversation, but sometimes our women have done it multiple times. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
not something that they're very proud of, but it's also not something that you need to hold secret.
Mm.
Because when things come out later, like you're saying, breast cancer, when things come out later, like, oh, why am I having all these miscarriages? You're misleading people to believe that it's just something that fell out the air, not saying those 3 boyfriends, you aborted 3 babies.
Mm. That's right.
So we need to be honest, and we need to open up a conversation that, like you said, even though it's going to hurt, be forthcoming about it so that we can really approach this issue, especially for the young girls who are coming along who think that this is a way to be.
That is so true, and hopefully people listen to your passion and what you're explaining to them, because I am, basically you're doing this because you're a reverend. You're doing this because it's something that a platform for you. Trust me, I did not choose to do this, but I was moved to do it because I want to be accountable. Because I took a vow to be accountable, and no one likes standing behind those signs. No one likes having to
They
stand,
are they are graphic.
and but yet they begin a conversation that we would never have if we didn't have them.
Didn't have the
So we
signs.
have to do it, and I don't want to give the people the impression that we're just trying to be obnoxious or anyway try to just be create a lot of drama without for any reasons. We have good reasons. We are being decimated. There's genocide going on, and this really, in light of the problem, is mild. My response is a mild response to 20 million African American babies who were innocently destroyed in the womb. And you get on me about a sign, some people do, and the way we go about it, we do it in decency and order. We don't call names, we don't belittle, we don't undermine.
Right.
We do it in the spirit of love. That's what Dr. King, we're nonviolent, and that's what the scriptures teach us.
I know you touched on the scripture and you led me right up to my question, because in the scripture, when we go to the Old Testament, as some would term it, Old Testament, and we see that this was the same issue in Egypt. Instead, it was kind of infanticide, where they waited till they were born and then threw them in the river. You understand? And many of these, and I saw a video one time on your site about the disposal outside of the testing, which is another subject, about the disposal of the fetuses.
Yes, it's a horrific institution that is unregulated. This is how Kermit Gosnell could continue his house of horrors, because there's like a quiet deal with abortionists and government. You don't bother us, we won't bother you. They probably get a little check that we never know about. But how can you go 10 years unregulated, or some of them as long as 15 years unregulated, uninspected, and have women coming in there? And these officers that went into Kermit Gosnell's place basically some of them got sick from the way the office, blood-stained furniture and dried up on the floor. And when they opened up the refrigerator, they were just totally appalled. And yet African-American women were going in there for services. It was even the way the black girls were treated were far different from the Caucasian women that went in. This was described by witnesses. So we need to hold government officials accountable. We need to ask, when's the last time this was inspected? Show me the data. You're not doing your job, and women are dying in these places that a lot of people don't even know about. They never talk about that on the news. If a girl dies, Tanya Reeves there in, I believe it was Indiana, and many others, these girls die. They die in silence. They die unheralded. They don't want to talk. I mean, it is so obvious what's going on. You just get totally frustrated sometimes with other leadership that are in the position to do something, choose just to turn away. I just want to get this story. You talked about Egypt. During the time of Jesus's time, when the Romans were ruling, during the last stages of the Roman Empire, they had infanticide. And if you did not like the child that was born, you could lay that child by the side of the road to die by law. Now, the Christians of that time basically said, well, we can't do that. Now, if you touch the child, you and the child, if the authorities find, are executed. Okay, so the Christians of that time were scooping these children off the side of the road and raising them, not knowing that any day a knock could be at the door and that they would both be executed. Him or her for taking the child off the road, and the child because the child was left to die. That sounded just like Barack Obama when he said, well, what about the child that's born alive that escapes the abortion, which does happen, and is alive on the table? He said that child should be left to die because that was the will of the mother. That was Rome before it fell, by the way. Before it fell. I'll say that again, before it fell. That was the mindset of that administration. And we have this same mindset in the White House. That just scared the heck out of everybody. So anyway.
I wanted to also add, as you said that, because I'm doing a lot of reading on the slave narratives. What you just described is what I read a number of times when they were pushing the slaves, or the young slave mothers had children and they didn't want them to proceed with their children, and they would command them to leave them at the side of the road to die.
Oh,
yes.
See, I
Yes,
didn't even know that. That's
yes.
great. I got
And
to
I've
get
been reading some of these narratives that, leave that child, or if they sell them on the block and they saying please, and the child, I just read it like yesterday, and it's like leave the child on the side of the road to die, basically, which is
because see, even though it's years later, it's the mindset. It's the
the
same
mindset
devil,
is still the
the
same.
same evil spirit that was probably back there in Rome was right there in slavery, and it's we are paralleling too much of societies that were destroyed.
Yes.
Listen, we have the blood of over 55 million children right now. I don't think God's going to wink on that.
Ooh.
Now, are you going to edit this?
Um, I was gonna do a little teaser, I was
Okay.
gonna put out a
All
little
right.
teaser.
I gotta run and pick up my grandchild.
No problem, no problem. So I just wanted to just want to thank you so much for tuning in. Is there any last things that you wanted to say before we go?
Absolutely. Don't let it end here. First, I want to thank our sister for this program. It's so desperately needed. And I'm grateful that she chose to take this subject matter up with her audience. I pray that I can somehow post it on my website and get
Yes.
people to hear it. And I'm grateful for you out there listening. Just ask yourself, what role do I have to play? We've been deceived. We've been lied to. And if you want to test me on that, go to your local politician, especially if he's African American, and ask him, what are you going to do about this? And so we need to have that type of education. And I'm grateful for social media. I'm grateful for the internet, because I'm believing at this point that's the only way it's going to get done. And so please, once again, challenge me, blackgenocide.org. Please go to that website. Any information you see on there, Google it, find out for yourself, do your research. And as the host has already said, I don't want to mispronounce your name. That's why
Una, yeah.
has said, my Alpha 21
Watch it.
says it all.
Yes. So thank you once again. This is Reverend Childress. He came in and he just shined a light, as you saw, came through the back window on this very dark and hidden topic. So thank you all for tuning in. My name is Amuna Israel. This has been Solonomics 101 special edition. So next time, tell somebody, share it, have the conversation, make a change in your life. Until next time, shalom.